rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Oh, the first Wednesday of the new year. Oh, my gosh. It is none other than...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right. It is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. Tonight, I am drinking out of the Four Roses. Four Roses single barrel. And of course, I am drinking it out of the surprise, surprise. True Grit Roots Network glass with the requisite stones, because of course it takes stones to drink with me. Let's drink with whiskey. Yeah, that first sip. It's smooth. Anyway. All right. Wow. Kind of an interesting, day today. You know, something has exploded out of New York City with the socialists that are over there. Man, I gotta tell you, if that old adage of saying that whatever the voters want, they should get it good and hard, I hope that works for New York. Because I gotta tell you, New York, man, whoo, there's a couple of things that, there's a couple of things that have been developed over there. I mean, other than the fact that, you know, how Ma'am Danny was saying, oh, yeah, it's going to be free transportation for everyone. And then apparently the bus fares were raised. Subway fares were raised. All starting on January 1st. Yeah. Okay. We'll see what happens over there. But there's one particular individual within his cabinet that is now starting to draw some ire, and we'll get into that here in just a minute. But first, we are at the top of the order. So, that being said, I haven't seen her in the chat yet, but Amy is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Amy as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, Amy, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email address. You can attach it to an email and send that email off to an address. The address is fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. I have 20 right now. I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026. So we got to start somewhere. All right, I'm going to call him out just because he's brand new. Welcome to the program, Fernando 360. And if you plan on hanging out, I just make a request. If you would please put in a pledge. And if you do it on your phone, by the way, I've heard that all you have to do is hit, after you record it, you hit the share option, and it'll give you the option to send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. I also don't have one from Jarhead. Man, it would be awesome if I ended up getting 2 pledges in this week. One from Jarhead and one from Fernando. That would be awesome. Anyway, I see you two in the chat. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about tonight's headline sponsor, which is True Grit Roots Network. That is TGRN. TGRN. Let me see. I don't have their banner up. There it is. TGRN.net is our home on the web. That stands for, of course, True Grit Roots Network. They have 2 wonderful channels. One is Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio. The other is Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. And you can go and listen to both of them. It is 24/7, 365. You can listen right from your browser if you go to tgrn.net. But, yeah, and here's the 2. You can click on the play buttons, whichever one you want. Okay. And whichever one you want, hit the play button. And, well, Fernando, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. That goes back a ways. Anyway, back to TGRN. Hit the play button on these web apps here. You can see, and you can listen to either one of the channels right there through your browser. Or if you want to take us with you when you go running around and doing your shopping and all that other stuff, grab the app. Grab the app from either the App Store or Google Play. You can pick the channel that you want or download both of them. Why not? And then just change depending upon your mood. But go ahead and download it and start playing TGRN, whether it's Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, for all of that. And you can do that. We would be loving it. Fantastic. It would be absolutely wonderful. And in case you didn't notice, there is a shop. Look up there at the top of your screen, right to the left of my CC, my closed captioning. You can see the shop being flashed right there in red. It's boop, like a big old alarm button. Hey, let's go get that. I'm rolling over it, which lights it up. You can go and hit that shop button or go to shop.tgrn.net and you'll be presented with our fantastic swag for tgrn.net. There's t-shirts, hoodies, and caps or hats, whichever way you want to call them. But anyway, so there you go. Caps or hats, hoodies, and I personally am partial to just the tgrn.net logo, the TGRN logo, True Grit Roots Network, because that just covers both of them. But hey, if you want one, if you prefer Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio or you prefer Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, go ahead and get one of those or both of those. I mean, hey, why not just make it an entire match set? Get one of each or 10 of each, whatever, and then show everybody your pride and happiness in listening to Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, or whatever else we get in terms of True Grit Roots Network. Head on over to shop.tgrn.net to check that out, or both. Head on over to tgrn.net. That's our home on the web. TGRN, that stands for True Grit Roots Network. And they are based out of Austin, Texas. I just realized I got to update the banner that I put up because I only have Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio's logo showing. I got to do something with that. Maybe I'll have it rotate between the two. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Anyway, I keep saying that every time I see it, but I haven't done it. Oh, it just goes to show you how busy I am, Anyway, all right. Well, yesterday, of course, was the 5th anniversary of the Democrats crying. That's the Democrats have found one riot that they actually don't like, and that is the one on January 6th. They love all of the other riots that went on, especially the Summer of Love riots. They love all of those, but no, January 6th, which was a riot, small, for sure, but it's still, that's all it was. There was no insurrection. Sorry, Democrats or leftist lunatic idiots. There was no insurrection on January 6th. Well, there was a bunch of things. I was telling you about it yesterday, and it continued on to today. Either that or I was just catching up on social media, but everybody was talking about it. Well, everybody who was a leftist anyway. Well, what's kind of fun, though, is the White House, because remember, Trump is a troll. He loves to troll. And so he went and he trolled. He trolled. Yeah, the White House trolled really, really hard on these guys. The White House launched a new website. Well, it's a sub-website. I mean, I know how this stuff works, but here it is. It's a sub-website directed at January 6th. Oh, my God, it's got a big, ugly face. Oh, that's Nancy Pelosi. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, you should go and check it out. It's at whitehouse.gov/J6 / Yeah, whitehouse.gov/J6 / And when you scroll down, you'll see the unselect committee. And, yeah, it discusses what actually happened with January 6th. And it talks about how Donald Trump took decisive action to pardon the January 6th defendants because, let's face it, nobody was really charged with anything major. The vast majority were charged with obstruction, which got thrown out by SCOTUS. And then some were charged with trespassing. Some were charged with destruction of property, and only a very small handful were charged with what the leftists seem to think is like the smoking gun. That was just a few of the Proud Boys that got charged with sedition. All of it made up, of course, but they got charged in D.C., so that's kind of how that goes. You cannot get, if you're a conservative, you will not get a fair trial in D.C., Washington, D.C., or any leftist lunatic state like New York's, California, Washington, Oregon, any of those. So it also continues, this also continues and gives the video. Here's the video. Oh, they play the video, the 41-second video of where Nancy Pelosi says, "I take responsibility." You know, that video that wasn't supposed to be seen by anybody? Yeah, it showed up where she was being rushed away in the, I don't know what it was, the what do you call it? The SUV. I don't know. It might have been a GMC, could have been an Expedition. I don't know. But anyway, where she was being rushed off, she had her mask on, and she's like, "Where was the National Guard? I take full responsibility for not putting the National Guard." Yeah, that's because you denied it 3 days earlier. You dumbass. And it was on January 3rd. The request or the suggestion by Donald Trump to be like, "Hey, we could put, 10,000 troops at your disposal because we know that there's going to be a lot of people here. We can put 10,000 National Guard troops at your disposal for crowd control." "Oh, no, we're fine." That was Muriel Bowser's official statement. "Oh, no, we're fine. We don't need them, except for maybe, outside of the Capitol, put them out and do maybe some what do you call it? Traffic control. Yeah, we don't need that many. We're fine. We're fine." He could have, they could have had it. And then it continues. And they have a timeline of when everything happened. And they even point out where President Trump urged for calm. And not only that, but also told everybody to go home. Yeah. Peacefully and patriotically, so on and so forth. And then further down, they have the proclamation that freed the January Sixers. And then, of course, they have a showcase of pictures of people who were there. And right in the center, on the first page, is Ashley Babbitt. Right here. There's Ashley Babbitt. The only person who was killed by something outside of, well, essentially, she was killed. She was killed by a police officer, Capitol police officer, who is still running around free. I mean, I know Rosalind or whatever her name is, she died underneath the tunnels, but she died from medical causes. Ashley Babbitt died from human intervention, meaning a bullet. Then it continues and it shows the House interim report that talks about how the critical security failures led to issues. Leadership in the Pentagon details how the acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, dismissed President Trump's January 3rd directive to deploy any necessary military assets, including the National Guard, to ensure safety. So there it is, right there in black and white. Right there in black and white. Yeah. And the report itself strongly criticizes Nancy Pelosi's they call it the Select Committee, but for the partisan composition, bias, ethical violations, coaching witnesses like Cassidy Hutchinson, documents refuting Hutchinson's claims, and things being hidden, Cheney's unethical direct communications with Hutchinson. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Uncovering the cover-ups of related investigations, omitting exonerating evidence of Trump safety directives, fabricated timelines, unfairly blamed D.C. National Guard leadership, all this other stuff that was found. So I'm just going to say it this way. If you're a leftist moron and you still think that January 6th was an actual insurrection, you do not have enough brain cells to rub together to even have a thought. Okay? That's it. Now, they also included, and this I thought was kind of cool, they also included the actual speech, video of the actual speech that Donald Trump gave, and then the BBC deceptive edit, which, by the way, the last that I checked, that is still going through the court system. So, yeah. And then at the very end, they've got all of the sources and official documents that basically explain all of this. So, if you have anybody in your life who sits there and still considers January 6th an insurrection and says that it was all because Donald Trump happened to be there, which he wasn't, he got whisked away to the West Wing. Remember that? He wanted to go to the Capitol, but he wasn't allowed. Yeah, I remember that. The Secret Service said, no, we cannot ensure your safety, Mr. President, so we're going to take you to the West Wing. You can watch from there. Yeah, remember that? He wasn't even there, and they still try to blame it on him. It's freaking stupid is what it is, but anyway. So I thought I'd bring you the website and let you take a look at that. That is a fantastic thing. I am tempted. I don't know why, but I like grabbing things like the documents and just kind of holding them off because I know that they'll be coming back up. So I'm tempted to go there and download all of those documents and just hold them for later use. You can just imagine the size of my hard drive. Hey, I know what you were thinking I was going to say, but no, my disk space. Anyway. All right. Well, now for some serious news. Well, apparently in Minneapolis, an unfortunate incident has occurred. Apparently during a Minneapolis ICE raid. A Minneapolis driver decided to try and drive over a federal officer. Now, it was a traffic stop that started it, okay? It was a traffic stop that started it in a residential neighborhood. And this woman apparently decided to try and drive over the officer. Folks, public service announcement. There's a couple of things that you need to understand. Number one, when a police officer pulls you over, or when a police officer is attempting to, stop you for whatever reason, whether it's a DUI checkpoint, whether they, say, hey, we're pulling you over because you have a broken tail light, whatever it is, we're doing DUI checks, whatever it is. Comply with what the officer is asking you to do. See, police officers get a little squirrely when you start acting funny. And they get a little pissed when you try to use your 3, 4, 5,000 pound vehicle as a weapon. And usually when you take matters into your own hands in that case, you generally will find out that that's not a good idea. Because these officers, unfortunately for her, they shot her. Now, she was shot, again, unfortunately. She was shot in front of a family member because she decided to take into her own, matters into her own hands. Now, apparently, the woman appeared to be blocking the roadway with a car. And this was according to Police Chief Brian O'Hara, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, during a press conference. O'Hara, the woman appeared to be blocking the roadway. And then O'Hara said at some point the vehicle was approached by an ICE officer. And when it was approached, she began to drive off. She made contact with one of the agents. Then at least 2 shots. Sounds like 3, but at least 2 shots were fired. Now, folks, again, I'm just going to tell you this, all right? You've got to understand, when a police officer pulls you over, that is not the point to make your objections known. Do it later in a courtroom. Okay, you just don't need to be taking that kind of abuse or taking that kind of stance in front of the officers right there. Now, videos also were taken by bystanders from different vantage points, and obviously many of them were posted to social media. They show an officer approaching the SUV, demanding the driver open the door and reaching out to grab the handle. Now, the SUV begins to pull forward, and a different ICE officer who was standing in front of the vehicle pulls his weapon and immediately fires at least 2 shots into the SUV at close range, jumping back as the vehicle moves toward him. Then the SUV sped into two cars that were parked along the curb nearby and then crashed to a stop. So apparently the woman had been shot in the head. She was a 37-year-old white woman. And this is bad. So this, unfortunately, again, like I said, whether you agree with the officers or not, whether you think you're in the right or not, don't. Fight later. Argue later. Object later. do whatever they are going to do. And then, basically, I mean, obviously, just comply. You don't have to, you can object and you can get them fired later or whatever. Just comply. That's it. That's it. Now, of course, these, idiots in Minneapolis, like the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Fry, he said that the DHS's explanation for the shooting was a garbage narrative. It was an action of self-defense. Come on. Seriously, the guy's about ready to get driven over by a 5,000-pound SUV. It's ridiculous. So, anyway, the ICE officers who were hurt during the incident are expected to make full recoveries, according to this article in Newsmax. So, yeah. Anyway. They're actually thinking of possibly even trying to prosecute the officer who shot. I mean, seriously, come on, folks. You press the gas. You're at a stop. You press the gas. There's an officer in front of your vehicle, and you press on the gas. That essentially is akin to attempted murder, depending upon if you actually kill the person. I mean, seriously, I cannot stress this enough. Just do what the officers are asking you to do. Object later. Argue later. Do it in court where things can be, controlled. Trying to do this in front of everybody and their brother and attempting to do this to where, these people have no other reason or recourse but to think you're doing something. I mean, you don't even... Seriously, don't make sudden movements. Don't reach for your pocket. Don't move at all when the officer tells you to stop moving. This is nothing. I mean, this is just basic, realistic common sense here, folks. You just don't do this. You don't do this. I mean, hell, if I get pulled over, even though I know I'm speeding, if I get pulled over for a traffic stop, first thing I do, shut off the car. I roll down the window, shut off the car, put the keys on the dash in front of me. See, what does that do? Well, that tells the police officer, one, I ain't planning on running. Two, I put the keys up on top of the dash so that he or she can see the keys. The keys are there. I'm not going anywhere, not moving. And the third thing that I do is I put my hands on the wheel on the dash, and I wait for the officer to show up. When they come up to the window, I do not move until they tell me I can move. When they say, can I please see your license and registration, I'll say, okay. I am slowly reaching into my left hand pocket, wherever, okay? And, reaching for my wallet so that I can get you my driver's license. If they say, hey, I'll need your insurance card. Okay, officer, my insurance is in my glove box. Do I have permission to reach over to the glove box? Get the confirmation from them. Yes. Be nothing but polite and respectful to these people, and I guarantee you they want to go home at the end of the day. They're in a stressful job as it is anyway. I mean, just let's be honest. It is very stressful because you never know in that kind of a job. You never know if you're going to walk up on somebody who's going to be stupid and possibly send you to your grave at worst. This is just common sense, people. I cannot tell you enough. I cannot stress this to you enough. Comply with all of them. Comply with all of them. And if you happen to be carrying that day, now I don't know if all states are this way, but to be completely honest with you, if you happen to be concealed carrying, you had best make sure that that officer understands that not only do you have a weapon on you, but also that you are not going to reach for it. Now, some states require you to tell them clearly that you are armed, that you have a weapon. And some states don't require it. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to take the chance, because if that officer sees the butt of that weapon and it happens to be where my hand is reaching to get to that wallet, if I'm wearing, if I happen to be wearing a weapon, I'm certainly not going to want that officer to misinterpret which item I am actually reaching for. So it may not be a bad idea to just say, hey, officer, I'm not moving. I am not a threat to you. However, I am exercising my constitutional right to carry a firearm. Here is where it is located. I will not move until you tell me what you would like me to do. Be clear, be concise, be correct. And you know what? Legally, I don't even know if that's even I don't care. I don't care whether it's legal or not. I don't care what the legality is. I want to be able to walk home or go home. Okay? Some places actually require you and make it a lot easier that when you are handing over your driver's license, you also hand over any concealed carry license too. That's another way of doing it. And keep in mind, you need to consult with a legal professional in order to confirm everything that I'm saying. But I'm telling you right now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that not only am I going home after the interaction, that officer is going to go home too, because I certainly don't feel like doing something completely irresponsible and having them have to do something that's not going to let them go home. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Anyway, well, I jumped off on that soapbox for a little while. All right. I just get so frustrated over people like this. I mean, it's just so damn stupid. Why do you have, trust me, there is very little that you need to fear from the police. It really is. The vast majority of police officers that you meet are literally, all they want to do is go home at the end of their shift safely. That's it. And I promise you, that's all they're going to want. You acting stupid is not something that they want to have happen to them. Anyway, all right, before I move on to my next topic, let me tell you about this wonderful elixir that I drink every single morning because, well, let's face it, I have to wake up early and, anyway. It's this cup. I have a 16-ounce cup that has nothing but wonderful coffee in it. Coffee. And if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has been made available. There's a limited number of units available, and in each unit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard. You'll be getting the smooth medium roast and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee, which has clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you'll also be receiving the gold spoon, my personal favorite, a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions. Like, that's really all that hard. You'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear. All yours for just a low, low price of $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to the numbers 1775, the word coffee, altogether all one word. That's 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they are gone. That's 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO. Grab your starter kit before they're out of here. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com / and that's your question mark key on your keyboard if you're wondering. / studio, STUDIO. Grab your starter kit today. G puts in 1775 coffee, so wide awake that the facts of life are self-evident, just as the founders intended. Oh, you gotta love them. I swear, my loyal listeners, my Whiskey Warrior P1s, come up with some really good ones. You guys should be writing some ads. All right, well, let's take a shift from Minnesota over to New York City. Yep, New York City. You know, the old Pace, Picante commercials or whatever. Anyway, you know that New York mayor that just got elected? Yeah. After Maduro got caught, he basically said, hey, I was briefed on the whole Maduro operation. Oh, yeah, no, I was briefed on the whole Maduro operation. Well, there's only one problem. Ma'am Danny is reportedly doesn't have federal security clearance. Oh, this in town hall. Ma'am Danny wrote on, I think it was X. He said, I was briefed this morning on the U.S. military capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, as well as their planned imprisonment in federal custody here in New York City. He also said that he called President Trump to express his displeasure with the capture of Maduro. Now, you know, okay, let's be honest here. He probably was made aware of the fact that Maduro was going to be arriving in New York City and being held there pending his trial. But the assertion and the word that Ma'am Danny used specifically was that he was briefed. Ma'am Danny doesn't have security clearance. Yeah. And by the way, he even admitted it. Oh, these idiots.
Clearance yet, and has anyone from a federal agency reached out to you or members of your team to begin the vetting to get federal security clearance?
That briefing, yes, was conducted by my team, and the question of federal security clearance is one that's ongoing.
So do you have it right now?
No, not as yet.
See? He said no. Even though he's trying to make it sound like, hey, you know what? I'm brand new and I'm so good. The president calls me for all of this stuff. Yet no. No, dude. You are so far down on the frickin' totem pole. Oh, these people. He's trying to make himself out to be some sort of like big shot when he absolutely is not. And he absolutely is not. And I seriously wonder whether or not, even if he applied, whether he would actually get it anyway. Because let's be honest, Ma'am Danny hasn't really done so well. He's surrounded himself with all kinds of controversial staff picks. Some included convicted criminals. Many of them are leftist radicals. He's also appointed a guy who defended the al-Qaeda terrorist Ahmed al-Darbi in court. And he hired him as the city's top attorney. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be getting his, he's not getting his security clearance anytime soon, federal security clearance anytime soon. Well, speaking of one of his picks, there's a woman who has basically come under fire now. Her name is Cia Weaver. That's CEA Weaver. I don't know, it could be Chia? I don't know. Hell. But anyway, he hired this woman as his new tenant director. Well, this tenant director has previously tweeted some questionable things. For an example, she once tweeted that private property is a weapon of white supremacy. Yeah. She also tweeted that she wants to impoverish the white middle class. Oh. Okay. She also tweeted sometime in the past, we'll transition from treating property as an individual good to be a collective good. Whites especially should be impacted. Well, she's also said publicly, elect more communists. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people were like, what the WTF here? Why do you have this woman on this staff? Well, Ma'am Danny, of course, is standing by her because that's exactly what he wants. That's his literal agenda here, people. There's just no way. There's nothing else. I mean, he basically said, we made the decision. This is what he told reporters in an unrelated news conference. We made the decision to have CEA Weaver, serve as our executive director for the mayor's office to protect tenants, to build on the work that she has done to protect tenants across the city. And we are already seeing the results of that work. Really? Really? Well, I got a question for you there, Mr. Ma'am Danny. She seems to have a problem with home ownership. She obviously has a problem with her mother. Oh, you think I'm lying? No, I'm not. Her quote unquote tenant advocate, or his quote unquote tenant advocate. Well, her mom has a $1.6 million home in Tennessee. Wait, I thought home ownership wasn't supposed to be individualized, that it was supposed to be, the community, or whatever it was that she said. Anyway, apparently she was asked about it, and, she broke down into tears. She broke down into tears. Let's see if I can get I don't know if this is a video or an image or what, but. Nope. No, it's just an image, but that's okay. I can still show it to you. This was posted on the New York Post's X account. Apparently, there she is on the left. She was crying because she was asked about it. Yeah. And then there's her mother's home up in the upper, well, above me in the video. There it is up in there's her mother's home. $1.6 million in an area, too, that I didn't think had that many homes that were up that big. But anyway, shows you how much I know about it. But yeah. So, now, she has the stated goal. She was sworn in, and she has the stated goal of holding landlords accountable and ensuring that New York City tenants live in safe, clean homes. Now, of course, Ma'am Danny was, just falling all over himself for her. And by the way, she also is a graduate of a posh college called Bryn Mawr, BRYNMAWR, Bryn Mawr College. And of course, the mayor kept saying, Oh, yeah, she's leading housing justice for all in the New York State tenant block, where she helped pass the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019, which was landmark legislation that closes loopholes that landlords use to raise rents and push apartments out of stabilization. Yeah. Anyway, she's also in the past advocated to seize private property. Let's see, there's another link here that I didn't click on before, but let's see what this is all about. Oh, yeah. Yeah, here's one of her tweets. Oh, by the way, this is from the archive today. Remember how we were talking yesterday about stuff being on the internet, living forever? Well, there it is. Oh, here she goes. That's her. That's her tweet. She goes, private property, including and kind of especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy, masquerading as wealth-building public policy. Yeah, really. Yeah, really. As you can see, I got my Zoom fixed. Sorry. Oh, I'm just excited that I got that fixed because that bugged me. Anyway, yeah, things are going stellar for New York. And apparently, here's some more. See, there's another resurfaced video that basically suggested that transitioning to treating property as a collective good instead of an individualized good towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. Yeah, she's just a straight up communist, okay? Now, for those of you that don't know, communism was tried in this country before we actually turned over to a capitalist system. You know who did that? Bradford, William Bradford, back in the 1600s when the Pilgrims first got here. And you can read about it in his log of it. He figured out that the idea that everybody takes a share of no matter how much effort you put in, everybody gets an equal share. Yeah, that didn't work very well when they first got here. And in fact, the colony didn't prosper until he came up with the idea. He and the rest, I mean, we're going to credit him, but he and the rest of the leaders there came up with the idea that, hey, we're just going to give everybody a plot of land, and whatever you do with it, whatever you can make out of it is what you get, which is essentially the idea of capitalism. If I put in a whole bunch of effort into something and I get a bunch out of it, then that is all mine. That is individualistic property ownership. That's the whole idea and the concept of capitalism. Whatever risks I take, whatever things I win, and at the same time, whatever things that I lose, it's all my responsibility. It's all on me. It has nothing to do with, sharing the wealth with anybody else. Now, if I decide to give away some of my gains, that's up to me. That's entirely up to me. And you sit here and you talk about all of this and you're thinking to yourself, oh, wow, back in the 1600s, they started with that idea? Yes. All you have to do is to listen to Rush Limbaugh's Thanksgiving, the true story of Thanksgiving, and he explains it all quite well in about 30 minutes. Fantastic. But anyway, yeah, we're going to have to see what happens with New York City because I got to tell you, I hope they get what they asked for good and hard. Well, you know what's interesting about this? Now, I honestly, I don't claim to be like an advocate for communism or socialism or anything else. And even Marxism. I mean, Marxism is basically the start down toward communism and socialism. Let's just put it out there. And so many people have sat there and been like, you know what? We're going to go and take a look at the Communist Manifesto, which is where Karl Marx, everybody calls him a Marxist, his philosophy is Marxist, but he wrote the Communist Manifesto. Try and logically figure that one out. But anyway, there was this piece in the Foundation for Economic Education. And for those of you that haven't gone to the Foundation for Economic Education, it's FEE.org is the website. And I got to tell you, they've got some good analyses and opinions and some good information for students and for teachers and things like that. Well, there's this gentleman by the name of Daniel Kowalski, Kowalski, Kowalski. And he decided to pick up the Communist Manifesto. And he wrote this opinion article about it. And I want to read a little bit from it so that you kind of understand that, everybody seems to sit here and think that Karl Marx was just this, he was a visionary. The whole bourgeoisie and the class warfare and the whole idea that, there can be no change without violence or anything else, right? Yeah. Anyway, he apparently he acquired the Communist Manifesto for free because the Apple bookstore actually carries it, is because it's a classical ebook. And he downloaded the Communist Manifesto. And by the way, the Communist Manifesto, according to the Apple bookstore, it's actually a pamphlet, not a book. And it's 67 pages. It's 67 pages, so it's really not that long of a read. I may actually even grab it myself and read it, just for fun. Maybe not. Anyway, historians like to kind of, now keep in mind, this is Daniel's words, okay? Historians like to play the devil's advocate when it comes to Karl Marx, the author of the work, and how communism was executed in the 20th century. Now, their argument is that if Marx were still alive when the Soviet Union was formed, he would have disavowed it. He would have claimed that that was not what he envisioned. How many times have you heard that? I'm just going to ask. How many times have you heard, socialism and communism has not been implemented correctly anywhere in the world, and we're going to do it right now? Right meaning correctly. I mean, just listen to the Democrat Socialists of America like Bernie Sanders, who owns something like 4 houses. Oh, no, everybody, unions are the way to go, and you should go after the billionaires. Notice how his rhetoric has changed from millionaire to billionaire as time has gone on. I wonder what happened there. Yeah, Bernie Sanders, who has never literally contributed anything constructive to society in his entire life. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, back to the piece. Their argument, I'll pick back up where I was. Their argument was that if Marx was still alive when the Soviet Union was formed, he would disavow it, claiming that's not what he envisioned. I've heard plenty of arguments and facts that denounced communism and prove that it's a failed ideology with disastrous consequences when put in practice. But I'd never read the original source of this ideology, so maybe the apologist historians were onto something. Yeah. So the Oxford Dictionary, according to Daniel, the Oxford Dictionary describes the manifesto to be a public declaration of policy and aims. Okay, well, when you base it on that definition, Daniel says the Communist Manifesto is very vague in this respect. Readers don't even receive a clear summary of the belief of communism until page 29, which literally is the abolition of all private property. That's what communism is, according to Marx. Daniel continues and says there aren't any instructions for how this should be organized or administered. It should just happen. even if it requires brute force. He continues and says, and no one dare complain because the bourgeoisie capitalists are only getting their just desserts. And if you're part of the proletariat, then your possessions are meager and you would have eventually lost them anyway because capitalism will eventually ruin you. Yeah. He says, in the 67 pages of the manifesto, only 2 are actually devoted to listing what the policies of communism would be. The policies, he says, enumerated in 10 points, are these: the abolition of land ownership, heavy taxes to the point of crippling individual wealth, the abolition of the right of inheritance, confiscating the property of all emigrants and rebels. In other words, destroying those who disagree with you. Okay? Nationalized banks, centralization of all communication and transportation to the state, state owning all means of production for industry and agriculture, establishment of worker armies, gradual abolition of the distinction of cities and towns, in other words, forced resettlement, and finally, free education. And our Australian contingent succinctly pulls it up, and that whole list, everything that I read is really simply and succinctly stated, you will own nothing and be happy. Oh, that's pretty good. You will own nothing and be happy. Yeah. 2 pages. So this is back to Daniel's piece. He goes 2 pages out of 67 is light for defining what a government system should be. But these policies were incorporated in Soviet Russia and the People's Republic of China following both countries' successful communist revolutions. The Soviet Union became a superpower and then collapsed under the inefficiencies of communism. The Chinese Communist Party still exists today because its leaders largely abandoned Marxist policies in favor of market reforms. But here's the worst part, and the most lasting effect of communist theory being put into practice, is literally the death toll of somewhere between 55 to 95 million people. Think about that. 95 million people. That's an estimate, of course, because we didn't actually have actual counts from way back in the day. Keep in mind, Marxism came around, and I'm stepping away from the piece for a second, but Marxism came around in the 1800s, long after the Constitution was created. Well, I won't say long after. It was shortly after the Constitution was created and America was created. And basically, what Daniel is trying to tell everybody is that literally, the Communist Manifesto is essentially 65 pages of nothing but complaining about his situation. Marx's complaining of his situation, and 2 that sort of describe what his ideal situation might be. That's literally the Communist Manifesto in his eyes, in Daniel's eyes. So he goes through it chapter by chapter and, section by section. And he basically talks about, like, section 1, called the bourgeoisie and the proletarians, or the bourgeois and the proletarians, because I don't think it's bourgeoisie. I don't know, but I'm not a very French person, so I can't freaking pronounce it, all right? Anyway, he says, the main theory of this part of human civilization has historically seen class conflict between a ruling class and everyone else that is under them, whether it's lords and serfs and feudalism or patricians and plebeians in the Roman Empire, Marx defines the class conflict of this era, or of his era, to be the bourgeois, which is the merchants, the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the capitalists, the new middle class, and the proletariat, those who don't own much. And their only way to earn money is to sell their labor. He goes, the only way, according to the Communist Manifesto, the only way to end this conflict is to have a revolution that will make everyone part of a single class, known as the proletariat. Marx also recognizes the aristocracy, a class seen as enemies to the bourgeois, who are attempting or who are disrupting the old ways of society. Yeah. Let's be honest here, folks. Let's be completely honest here. The only way to make everything fair is to put everybody in the bottom course. I mean, basically make everybody be poor. I mean, that's literally what he's saying here. He's like, you'll go to the proletariat. The proletariat, they don't own anything. They don't have anything other than their labor. That's it. And that's how they survive. So he's basically, according to the Communist Manifesto, he's basically saying, yeah, everybody needs to be a part of that class. Forget the rest. Everybody just needs to be poor. Well, sounds to me like that's a bit of a complaint. That sounds to me like this guy is basically saying, hey, I'm poor. I'm poor, and I just want everybody else to be poor. I have no idea. Hey, I just gotta let everybody know. And I don't know why it doesn't show up over here, but I'm just gonna say, thank you, Ms. T. Thank you, Ms. T. Because Ms. T just gifted a bunch of subscriptions over on Rumble. So, thank you for that. Thank you to all of the people who have been gifted one. So it looks like a few people have been gifted. So thank you, Ms. T, for throwing that in there. That is just fantastic. Ms. T is always so nice. She does that every once in a while. Anyway, so, yeah, it's literally 65 pages of complaints and 2 pages of figuring this out. Now, in the end of the article here, Daniel talks about this, about Marx and how Marx should not be celebrated. Because it says, as an economist, Marx lacked the vision to see the future and what the Industrial Revolution would turn it into. Just before the fall of the Soviet Union, 20% of the Soviet Union's population was living in poverty despite more than 70 years of communism. Think about that for a second. 70 years of communism, 20% of their population was living in poverty. Now, the communists here, the Marxists here, the socialists here, the democratic socialists here seem to think that our lower, well, let's call them the people who are living below the poverty line here in the United States, that they are essentially, the lower class. They're the ones that should be gaining everything. They're the ones that, all of this stuff. But what is lacking here is the context of the fact that it gives the context. You have to get the context of the idea that our poverty stricken down here, our poverty here is higher, much higher living, higher standard of living than anywhere else in the world. Where else in the world can you go? Any other country, just name another country. And I'm talking like ones that are literally in poverty. Any other country that you go to in the world that is literally having people starving, they don't have iPhones. They don't have brand new Nike shoes. They don't have cars. They don't have any of that. And yet here in America, everybody, most everybody who is in poverty actually has all of those things. So the standard of living here in America is much, much higher. You may be, quote unquote, living in poverty here in America. But if you compare that to the rest of the world, oh my gosh, you are living almost like a middle class or upper middle class in almost every other country that's out there. Especially in places like North Korea, as an example. Anyway, now here's the thing, is that we in America have led the world in terms of raising the standard of living. Now, here's an example, and this is something that Daniel points out in this article. He says in 1990, 36% of the world's population lived in what is known as extreme poverty. But by 2015, that number reduced to 12%. It reduced by 2/3. From 1990 to 2015, that number, the number of people in the world's population that was living in poverty, was reduced by 2/3. And by the way, communism and top-down centralized governments, in other words, dictatorships, none of that was responsible for that reduction. That was capitalism. Now, Marx died almost 150 years ago, and in the years since his death, we have seen his criticisms of capitalism disproved. As the middle class has grown, the standard of living has surged around the world. And that's what's happening here, folks. That's what is happening here. And these idiots, these Marxist leftist idiots that are running around in places like New York City promising, hey, everybody's going to have everything that you ever want. It is utopia. It is like Star Trek. You will own nothing and be happy. Sorry, I had to borrow that from Becky. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I want to be, I want to be able to do what I want to do and spend my money my way in the things that I want to do, in the things that I want to, accomplish or promote or whatever. I mean, I want to have the ability to do like Ms. T did, which was, hey, she felt like she wanted to donate. She donated. And next thing you know, hey, all of a sudden, 5 people, they picked up subscriptions to this channel. Here on Rumble, you saw it happen live. That's capitalism, man. That's freedom. That's individualism. That's what America is all about. Ms. T had the extra money and she decided, hey, I like it. I'm gonna, there you go. So, folks, that's what America is all about. America has created all of this. And I think somebody pointed out a lot earlier in the chat. I caught it, but I didn't want to, it wasn't apropos to the conversation that I was having at the time or what I was talking about. But Margaret Thatcher, to me, one of the greatest leaders of this world, she basically said the problem with communism or socialism or whatever it was that she used, and yes, I am paraphrasing here, but the problem with that philosophy is literally that sooner or later you run out of everybody else's money. And that is so true. The whole point of having a limited government having a limited government that only does very specific, enumerated things. The whole purpose of that is to only take care of the basics. The rest is all up to the individual. And that's what America is all about. If I want to spend my money, if I want to donate my money to some worthy cause that I feel is very worthy and worthy of my time and my energy and everything else, like, for an example, the Institute on the Constitution. They are a valuable 501c3 nonprofit organization that is trying to do grassroots education. My time is worth that, and so that's what I do. I give my time to promote them. I give my time to promote them. Here, I give my time to promote and talk about the things that I feel are important here on this show. But that's my individual choice. That's not the government telling me. That's not anybody telling me what I can and cannot say. My choice. And that's what individualism and American freedom is all about. That's what it's all about, folks. All right, let's see. Do I have any other? Oh, this is interesting. I don't think I've seen this before. Let's take a look at this. Speaking of Rumble, let's talk about Rumble Wallet. Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's talk about Rumble Wallet. So Rumble Wallet is basically, it deals with being on Rumble and having a channel like this. But here, Rumble Wallet, they can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters more now than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet. Rumble Wallet is a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets, if you're into those kinds of things, like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin, all in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators that you actually believe in, like me, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. It's your wallet, permanently. Okay? Yours to protect your future. Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics, it's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks. Go and check that out, seriously. They've been kind of talking to me about it, and I've been debating on whether or not I want to sign up for it so you guys can tip me. But I like the Rumble rants, too. But anyway, you go and check it out. It's a new thing that they're pushing for. Rumble is definitely the freedom place, for sure. Speaking of freedom, there's a oil tanker. There's an oil tanker that's no longer free. Yeah. Well, the U.S. forces chased down. Remember how I told you last night about 15 tankers all kind of made a rush at the blockade and a couple of them got through? Well, apparently U.S. forces finally were able to track it down or actually get close to it. You know, thinking about that, thinking about a chase on the water, you know, the water scenes, the chase scenes that you saw in, like, say, oh, I don't know, say Miami Vice or whatever. Yeah, that doesn't happen for real because both boats are like going as fast as they can go or whatever. Yeah, anyway. So the Russian government apparently asked the U.S. today to ensure proper and humane treatment of the crew of a sanctioned oil tanker that was boarded and seized by American forces in the North Atlantic. So this tanker was under a Russian flag, and that's why they're act to it. It's the ship, which was formerly known as the Bella One, is now called the Marinara, now called Red Sauce. Anyway, is in the North Atlantic between Iceland and the British Isles on Wednesday morning, U.S. officials confirmed. A spokesperson for the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs told the official TASS news agency that it was closely following the situation. Taking into account reports that there are Russian nationals among the crew, we demand the American side ensure proper and humane treatment of them, strictly observe their rights and interests, and put no obstacles in their soonest return to the motherland, the ministry said. Now, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt rejected the Russian request during her regular briefing on Wednesday. She said this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. The vessel was deemed stateless after flying a false flag, and it had a judicial seizure order, and that's why the crew will be subject to prosecution. The Marinara, I'm not kidding, it's Marinera. How else do you pronounce that? Anyway, the Marinara was one of two ships that were seized today that have ties to Moscow and have been either last docked in Venezuela or en route to it when the American forces took action, according to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, when she posted on X. She also continued and said, in two pre-dawn operations today, the Coast Guard conducted back-to-back, meticulously coordinated boarding of two Ghost Fleet tanker ships, one in the North Atlantic Sea and one in international waters near the Caribbean. So, yeah. Anyway, here's where they grabbed the Bella, or the formerly known Bella One. So the Marinara, previously the Bella One, was escorted by a Russian submarine, according to the New York Post. U.S. Coast Guard, a Navy P-8 submarine hunting aircraft, and AC-130 gunships were dispatched to intercept the tanker, according to reports. So this was the approximate location of the Marinara. Yeah. Anyway. Now, the second tanker, called the M. Sofia, was boarded in the Caribbean Sea en route to Venezuela. That ship was sailing under a Panamanian flag and was sanctioned last year for being part of Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers. So Noem finished out her post by saying the world's criminals are on notice. You can run, but you cannot hide. We will never relent in our mission to protect the American people and disrupt the funding of narco-terrorism wherever we find it, period. So there you go. The operations, of course, came more than 2 weeks after the Marinara eluded a blockade around Venezuela and was reflagged as a Russian vessel in a failed bid to evade capture. And we talked about that last night. So, yeah. Anyway. So this is going to be interesting, and we're going to keep an eye on this. But according to Newsmax, the Supreme Court ruling on the President Trump's tariffs could come as early as Friday. So they are expected to issue rulings on Friday, and of course nobody knows what rulings they're going to put out. But it was weighing cases with major implications both nationally and around the world, including the legality of President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. Now, the court indicated on its website yesterday that it could release decisions in argued cases where the justices take the bench during a scheduled sitting. The court does not announce ahead of time which rulings it intends to issue. Now, the challenge to Trump tariffs is among the most closely watched of the cases awaiting decisions by the top U.S. judicial body that could impact the global economy and marks a major test of presidential powers. Now, if we recall back a while ago, during the arguments heard by the court on November 5th, conservative and liberal justices appeared to cast doubt on the legality of the tariffs, which Trump imposed by invoking a 1977 law meant for use during national emergencies. Yeah, somebody came home to the studio here, and my puppy Angus was letting me know. Anyway, now what's interesting about this is a coincidental article that came out talking about the San Francisco Fed, and the San Francisco Fed, meaning the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank, is now suggesting that interest rate cuts may be a proper policy response should the tariffs end up standing. Now, the reason being is because the sharp increase in the tariffs imposed last year by the Trump administration may actually decrease or reduce inflation rather than increasing it. So U.S. imports were subject to an average of 17% levy last year, up from less than 3% at the end of 2024, and is the highest rate since 1935, according to the Yale Budget Lab. Now, the thing about it is that because we've been gathering all this money from tariffs, this San Francisco Fed is basically suggesting that, hey, that might actually help and offset, in other words, push the reduction in inflation. You'll know that inflation is running right around 3% right now. And so, yeah, we're going to have to kind of see what happens with all of this. So that court case in SCOTUS could have big implications on our economic situation, because let's face it, if the tariffs are deemed illegal, then the U.S. government is going to have to figure out how to get all of that money back to all of those businesses and those people who it collected from. Yeah. So researchers from Regis Barnachon, two researchers, Regis Barnachon and Ayush Singh, said in the regional federal bank's latest economic letter, which builds on their working paper that was published in November, quote, "Our analysis of historical data highlights a possibility that the large tariff increase of 2025 could put upward pressure on unemployment while putting downward pressure on inflation." Now, this particular finding draws on 150 years of empirical data on the United States, as well as other data on France and the UK. Now, the Fed held rates steady for much of the last year on concern that tariffs would actually add to inflation, as theoretical models as well as some empirical data suggested. But by September, signs of labor market weakness and a growing conviction that any inflationary boost from tariffs would only be short-lived, prompting the Fed to begin a string of rate cuts that lowered short-term borrowing costs by a total of 75 basis points, or 0.75% in 2025. So, apparently Trump may happen to know what he's doing here. Just saying. Somebody knows. Somebody in the Trump administration knows, whether that's Trump himself or his advisors. That's interesting. Now, one thing to note is that the historical findings on these things may not actually apply perfectly to today's economy, according to these researchers, because they noted that U.S. manufacturing today relies more on imported products than it did in the past, meaning that the tariffs may be more likely to trigger higher inflation, but we haven't seen that. And by the way, the Dow Jones closed at another record high, by the way. So, yeah. Anyway. Well, shifting to California really quickly in the final closing minutes. I'm going to take a quick drink here. Hold on. That good Four Roses stuff. Anyway. Shifting our focus to California. The 1-year anniversary of the Pacific Palisades fire. You remember that fire. We talked about it a lot on this program a year ago. How the Pacific Palisades were going up in smoke because there was no water. That the state neglected to do the proper management and maintenance of its forests. Anyway, so community groups planned multiple events to commemorate the anniversary. The two largest are the White Glove Flag Presentation and Remembrance Ceremony, which will commemorate the 12 Palisadians who lost their lives and pay tribute to the countless individuals and groups who are helping the community recover and rebuild, and the They Let Us Burn rally, headlined by Palisades fire victim Heidi Montag, which is going to be demanding accountability for the total breakdown in prevention, precaution, and leadership that led to the disaster. Now, the question was whether or not Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Gavin Newsom was going to have the guts to show up to the Pacific Palisades first anniversary. And they were questioning that. Well, Newsom and his team told the New York Post last week that he was going to be in the Los Angeles area on Wednesday meeting with wildfire survivors, but didn't elaborate on which survivors those would be or if he would participate in any of the public events. Now, the reason being, of course, is that the San Francisco State University political science professor Jason McDaniel told the Post that the fallout from the wildfires, combined with rising housing and home insurance or homeowners insurance costs, could be a ticking time bomb for Gavin Newsom's campaign. He said, "This is not Rudy Giuliani after 9/11. It's a difficult political narrative, and it's become more likely to be used as a sign of California mismanagement." What do you mean a sign? It is California mismanagement. Anyway, McDaniel warned that grandstanding or making political hay out of the fire anniversary won't be well received. Yeah. Now, Newsom, of course, didn't seem to be heeding McDaniel's advice. His strategy is, of course, to blame Trump. Yeah. So, once again, Gavin Newsom being Gavin Newsom. So, anyway, yeah. And by the way, don't forget that fire aid. Yeah. Anyway, it's had $34 billion in federal aid that Newsom was asking for. One fire victim pointed out that it's not for the fire victims. The bulk goes to the NGOs and patronage groups. You remember that Fire Aid, everything went to that was the benefit concert that they had, and the vast majority of the money didn't go to the actual fire victims. Yeah. So, anyway. And by the way, and a coincidence, if you believe in those, on Tuesday afternoon, Representative Jim Jordan and the House Judiciary Committee released the interim findings to their investigation on what happened to the $100 million fire aid that was raised in the wake of the fires, finding, quote, the fire aid has diverted donations to third-party groups instead of providing direct relief to the victims of the fires. From the report, it says Fire Aid advertised that all donations raised during its benefit concert would go directly to the victims of the California wildfires. Unfortunately, this is not the case. To date, Fire Aid has granted $75 million of the $100 million, raised to a total of 188 nonprofits, including $100,000 for voter participation efforts for Native Americans, $550,000 to groups involved in political advocacy, a known unknown amount of money toward illegal aliens, $100,000 to podcasters. Wait, I didn't get a part of that money, damn it. Anyway, and over $500,000 for bonuses, salaries, and consultants for the nonprofit organizations. Kind of interesting. This is part of the reason why you have to be very careful when you go to give money to anybody. I don't care what it is. So, anyway. Yeah. All right, folks. That is it for me. Oh, wait a minute. No. It's not, no, we're not at the end. I'm going over time, but there's a reason why, a part of a reason why I'm going over time. Hi. Ms. T, guess what? Yes, your one of your emergency pet of the weeks has shown up. Let's go on and get to it. All right, so for tonight's pen of the week, this obviously was submitted by Ms. T. This is an emergency fund. This is an emergency fund. One of two, so I'm down one. Somebody better get me another emergency one. I like having two in the wings, so this one on deck. All right, let me go ahead and, let me go ahead and turn that off. So really quickly, we just came off of the Christmas and New Year's break holiday. We spent a lot of time with family and friends, and that is all very important, of course. It's very important because you've got to have friends. And tonight's pet of the week is going to essentially highlight friends. This is two friends. One is the name of Dory. Dory is on the right. And Dory was just chilling at the front door. And Dory's best buddy, Sir Yowl, who is on the left. Sir Yowl is signaling his intentions to explore outside for a little while. Now, apparently this cat and this dog have become really great friends. See, contrary to popular belief, dogs and cats actually can be friends. Believe me, I know. Now, Sir Yowl is a pretty big cat at 15 pounds. He's pretty hefty. By hefty, I don't mean fat. I just mean big. Well-loved. Yes, thank you, Miss Whiskey from the back row.
Got a well-loved cat.
Yeah, we have a well-loved cat, too. She's right around 20 pounds. But anyway, I digress. And Dory is just under 13 pounds. Dory looks bigger because Dory's got a lot more hair. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, Sir Yowl is about 2 years old, and Dory just turned 14 in October. So they're like, yeah. Oh, Ms. T says stout as a bull. Yeah, very well could be. Anyway, so there they are, two pets. They're hanging out the front door. They're taking a look outside, and they both want to go outside, and they want to hang out together, and they've just become friends. So that is tonight's pet of the week. The two of them together, hanging out and wanting to go outside. Anyway, all right. Thank you for that, Ms. T, for your lovely contribution. If you would like to have your pet featured on the Pet of the Week, all you need to do is send me pictures, photos, videos, whatever. I know pictures and photos are the same thing. But send them all. Send them in. Email, or if you want to, you can even get them to me via Messenger on Facebook or any other way. Hell, send them by carrier pigeon for all I know. Send them on in. Send them to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get them featured on the Wednesday Pet of the Week. Before you take off, don't forget, if you haven't done so already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, you can search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, if you're signed into Rumble at the time that Ms. T kind of feels, generous and tosses out a whole bunch of subscriptions, you could probably get one. So there's another reason to go and sign up. Anyway, also don't forget before you take off to hit those thumbs up, thumbs downs, or in the case of 3 Chevy, the thumb sideways. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.